Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OnlyLandFans show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Drew Haney. Army officer, business owner, husband, and father of two daughters, Drew is here to share with us how to free up time and automate your business. Drew now spends 8 to 10 hours per week in his land business, and you can too. Drew, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thanks, Kendall. Doing well. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to have you. I know that I got a lot of comments on the promotional materials that we had that people were super excited to hear from you about how you can run a seven-figure business in only 8 to 10 hours. So we're excited to hear from you about that. But before we get to that, I'd like to know, can you share with us a little bit about how you got started in doing land deals?
Yeah, so I spent most of my 20s active duty Army. I had a boss that really, it was quite a miserable experience. So I went home one day and I Googled how to make money without a boss. And so the three options that Google spit out was day trading, real estate, or starting a business. And I've actually done all three. Day trading, if you want to get kicked in the nuts every single day, go ahead and pursue that. I actually left the Army and Brad, I see Brad laughing because he's probably experienced that. I actually left active duty to day trade full time. So I did that for a total of 5 years. And I finally threw in the towel when I lost like half my net worth in a 12-hour period overnight during the COVID flash crash. I was like long 7 contracts, S&P futures, which Brad knows like how quickly that can turn against you. And so after that, I'm like, this is not working. I need something else. And that's when my good friend Eric Wong introduced me to land. And I started flipping land summer of 2020. And since then, it's been an absolute blast. I've been doing it full time since for about 18 months now. So I have the first business, which is the one that we're going to talk about today, which is mostly flipping small, cheap stuff. And then I've trained really high quality people to do that for me for the most part. And then also I'm partnered with Jaron Barnes and we're building an education company and we're also funding his students' deals as well. So lots going on. And I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, that's incredible. We will actually have Jaron on in a few weeks, so definitely love all the different connections. So, can you talk a little bit about how you learned when you first got it started? Did you have a mentor? Did you have a coach?
Yeah, so I went through multiple different land programs. So I went through Land Geek, Land Shark. I went through Travis King's program. I'm in Clint Turner's program right now. So I see this as not an expense, but an investment that I will continuously make. I was just on the phone with Ajay a few hours ago, and I told Ajay, I'm like, I thought 2023 was the year I'm supposed to slow down, but I'm already on the schedule for 4 conferences this year. And then one of them is actually in South Korea. Jaron and I are hosting a conference there. So looks like lots of travel is on the schedule. And I just think I'm going to splurge on one of those lounge passes because there's nothing like just sitting down and feeling like the food is free, even though you literally paid for it through a membership.
Right on, right on. So, obviously, when you first get started, it's very important to have some type of support system, some type of um, knowledge or program, for lack of a better word. So, what type of support system did you have when you first got started? Because you went from day trading to land. So, how did you like? What was there for you to sort of support you in that transition?
Yeah, so I went through Land Geek first. It's not the best, it's not the worst. I actually don't think any program trumps another program. It's just whatever flavor you wanna do. And so probably the best thing we did was after that hand-holding period ended, all of us, and Wayne is actually one of them, all of us started meeting together on our own time. And so there's no money exchange. We just create our own little mastermind. And we've been meeting almost every week for over 2 years now.
Yeah,
So
that is incredible.
yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know it's very difficult, like when you first get started and no one else in your orbit is doing the same thing that you're doing or trying to do the same thing that you're doing. It's so difficult to kind of stay focused and feel like you're doing the right thing. So that's really incredible that you sort of went on your own and created your own mini mastermind, if you will. So that's fantastic. What types of land deals do you specialize in?
so there's two projects I have. So the first one is well, first I want to clarify the 7 figures and 8 to 10 hours a week. That is true, but I just peaked over 1 million top line revenue for last year, and that includes accounts receivable for one business. So that does not include deal funding, but does include cash sales plus accounts receivable for terms deals. So just wanted to clarify that. So for the first business, it's mostly buying and selling cheap stuff. I did 111 sales last year, and the average sale price was $9,000. So it's simple enough to teach to people who are more than happy to do that for you. And so I have 2 full-time US based employees for that. And then the second one is funding and being involved in Jaren's deals. So if you go to ibuyland.org, we just rebranded that to make it look like kind of Drew's running the show, because we found that the whole veteran patriotic thing works very well. And so I'm very involved with his stuff as well. And he does bigger blue ocean, like buy it for 40, sell for 80 kind of thing.
Got it. So, can you walk us through what is a typical deal that you are focusing on right now in that first land business?
Yeah, so I just entered the most crowded, probably the most crowded county in the country, which is Castilla County, Colorado. And I'm excited because I'm entering crowded spaces on purpose, because I believe that my branding and my customer service will beat everyone. Because I have both my full-time employees, they answer the phone within 10 minutes. They have no accent, and they're just great on the phone. And then also the branding is perfect for the rural crowd that really really believes in this country. And I believe in the message that I'm preaching, but I also know that like it's just really good branding. And so Castilla just entered, and so we just bought a 20-acre in Castilla, where we just bought it for 6,600, and it's probably worth high teens, low 20s, maybe mid 20s at most. It has great road access, so we'll probably list for mid 20s and see what kind of attention it gets.
Nice. So, for those that are listening right now who are sort of brand new to the land space, is your structure of how you do those particular deals, do you buy them outright? Do you buy them on terms? And then what's your exit strategy look like?
Yeah, so up until just recently, I've always bought everything cash. I've actually never, I don't think I've ever signed a contract. I'm aware of how that works. I've just never been in that space. But just recently, I convinced Brent Bowers and Dave Deniston to let me land arb some of their stuff, because I don't want to tie up some cash. And so I'm taking up a bunch of cheap, annoying stuff off their hands so they can go do sexy, fun stuff. And I'll be able to sell their properties with only making monthly payments. Then once I sell for cash, they deed to me, and then I deed to the end buyer. So it's kind of like a signing, but I am making monthly payments just to show good faith that I am, gonna give them money eventually.
Nice. So your exit strategy is selling outright, or do you create notes, hold those notes? What does that look like?
Right now, it's probably 50-50 cash notes, meaning 50% people pay me cash, 50%, I do owner financing, and then I tell my team to mark it up about 25 to 33%. So if the cash price, let's say I buy at 3,500, I list at 10,000 cash, we would put it on terms for maybe 12.5 or 13 grand.
Okay.
And then they make a down payment and then the monthlies. I tell my team I need to recoup that initial investment. So that 3,500, I need to recoup that ideally in the 10 to 14 month window.
Got it. And so do you offer owner finance in all of your properties or just certain ones?
The land arb ones, I probably won't offer owner financing because I don't want to do a spread and then have Brent or Dave liable.
Got it. Got it. And so roughly how many notes do you hold right now?
That's a better question for Steve. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 65.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm not sure.
Nice. So when you first started, tell me about your very first deal. Do you remember that very first deal? I think a lot of people remember their very first deal.
Yeah. So actually I could talk about the first three.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first one I did mail campaign. I bought it for 1,100 cash, sold it for 6 grand on terms, the down payment, and it was like a weird like mountain. I'm like, who's gonna buy this? But sure enough, somebody wanted to buy it. So it was 500 down, 250 doc fee, 100 a month. So I recouped all my money within 4 months. So that was
Nice.
the first one, and he's still paying. He's actually went out to the property because I own some properties nearby. So that's the first one. Second one was bought for 1,900, sold for 7 cash. And I didn't even use I wasn't even using contracts, no purchase agreements. I just convinced a couple firemen from Los Angeles to send me money, and it blew my mind. And then the third one was actually Steve and Tansha. They sold me a wholesale, and I just remember they were like so honest, almost to a fault. They said, "Yeah, we're gonna sell it to you for 1,200, and you could probably sell for 2,400 on terms." And I'm like, that doesn't sound great, but I'll just try it. And I sold it for like 3,600 cash. And so I just appreciated their honesty because they were just so conservative with their estimate.
Awesome. Awesome. So did you have any type of like resistance or hesitation to actually try land? Like what were some of the biggest challenges in your mind about the land flipping concept for you?
Yeah, so I had 2 distinct advantages that most people do not have. The first one is I had spent 5 years unsuccessfully day trading. And so the risk in the land business was just significantly less than day trading. So just from a spreadsheet standpoint, it made sense to try it. And then also I had a close friend and mentor in the Army who had been doing it successfully for 2 years. And
Nice.
I knew he wasn't lying to me, and I know he's not a genius. So so I'm like, hey, if he could do it, then I can do it, right?
Right. Nice. So do you actually, in your business model, do you raise capital for any of your deals, or is that something that you do or not, or?
So I have been all self-funded. So the first business spit out too much cash. Like I remember one time I had $250,000 just sitting there. It really stressed me out because I knew it was just like shrinking and not being used. And I didn't have the bandwidth at the time to exercise that cash. That's right when I met Jaron Barnes. So I started funding his deals, and we've been growing so fast that I actually I recently just exhausted pretty much all my capital. I emptied our safe from all the cash, like literal, like $100 bills. I drove to the bank, and I deposited it and wired the money out 4 minutes before closing on a Friday to fund a deal. So I am cleaned out. I actually considered selling one of our cars because I know my $15,000 car, that 15 grand is going to turn into 30, in just a few months. So I'm cleaned out, and currently, actually, Wayne is here. Wayne's been helping me with some capital, and then Brian Kim, he looks like he dropped off this call. But yeah, I have recently been looking for some really reliable capital partners as well.
Nice. Well, congratulations. What a problem to have. First, too much cash sitting there. Second, uh,
Too many deals.
too many deals, right?
Yes.
What a great set of problems to have. Congrats on that. So, what is your favorite answer to the question, what do you do? So, like, let's say you're out, at a mixer or something that's not real estate related at all. You're just out to dinner, and someone says, "What do you do?" What's the answer to that?
Hey, so Tantra just posted Steve's response. Steve says Drew has 53 notes not in default. So for those of you who are new, when you put the cheap stuff on terms, you're just going to have a higher default rate. That's just part of the game, because people, and it makes sense. So if you're paying $100, you put 500 down, you're paying 100 a month, and you just wanted to use that parcel for a year to shoot your guns, ride your dirt bikes, it actually kind of makes sense to walk away from your payments if you got, $1,000 worth of value out of it. So yeah, I probably have 5 to 10 defaults going on right now. And so that's why that comment is phrased in that way.
Well,
Okay.
before we get off of that, I think that's a perfect way to kind of segue into the question. For those that have not ever done notes before, having someone go in default on a note sounds pretty scary. So how do you handle that and mitigate that risk in your business?
So there's not a good answer. So there's two ways to do it. Okay. The first way is the by the book way, which is you bring it through title, you get a deed of trust. So meaning they actually own the property legally, but the deed of trust is a lien against it. And if they stop paying you, you actually have to foreclose on them. And then there's the other way, which is what I do, and most states allow this, where you just put it on a land contract. So you got the purchase agreement, you got the promissory note, and the land contract. Those three documents together create a terms agreement, and I own the land, I hold it as collateral, and then once they pay off, then I deed it to them. And there's different pros and cons with each method, and there's two different camps of thought, and people will debate over that, the pros and cons, but that's the high level difference.
Got it. And so for you, why did you choose that particular method?
That's just because that's what I knew.
Got it.
So when they start defaulting, they get multiple emails, they get multiple text messages, and they get certified letters. And actually Steve helps me with that. So Steve sends out the certified letters, and it's like for junky cheap stuff. So if it was like $100,000 infill lot in a nice area in Florida, my strategy would be much different.
Got
But
it.
if it's like a $5,000 like desert thing, and like they've only paid me $500 so far, it's the risk is just so small.
Got it. That totally makes sense. So back to the question, you're out having dinner and someone just socially asks you, so what do you do for work? What do you do? How do you answer that question?
It depends if I want to talk to them or not. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it would be phrased differently if I want to engage. If I'm not if I'm on a flight and I'm tired and I don't feel like talking, I might just say, "Oh, I'm in real estate," right?
Mhm.
If I want to sound like, yeah, if I want to kind of vanilla, I might say, "Oh, I own a small business," right?
Yeah,
And then if I know they'll understand it, I'll just say, "Hey, I flip land."
nice. Right on. So, What advice would you give to someone who is brand new, never done any type of deals before, never done any type of land, but they're interested and they want to get started? What advice would you have for someone that's brand new to the industry?
Um, yeah, just don't be afraid of risking money. So it's very possible you do your first mailer, you spend 5 grand on it, and you get no calls. And that's, hey, that's part of being in business, right? It's unlikely, but be okay with losing some money at the beginning. Don't feel like you have to have it perfect. I used default templates, like from Pebble and from LandGeek. I just used the mailer that they said to use. I just put my name in there, and that worked for like the first year or two. And I
Wow.
didn't redesign my own until just recently.
Wow. Very cool.
Um, and then also you have to work on your soft skills. So your people skills, your ability to make people trust you, because all of that matters. I would say the first book to do would be How to Win Friends and Influence People. Just how to be nice to people, how to remember their name, right? How to remember how many kids they have and what they're into, you know, because these sales, even buying and selling, it takes multiple calls, maybe 5 to 10 calls. So on call 2 and 3, you should be asking them, hey, I know little Jimmy had elbow surgery, how did that go? you know and that's how to see a lot of success is work on those soft skills, and I think they are underemphasized in this business.
Yeah, that's an incredible point. I've heard many people say before that, we're not really in the business of real estate. We're in a people business first, and we just so happen to do real estate transactions. Kind of helps to keep people first on top of mind. So, with an operation the size of yours, how do you keep track of all of these people and their kids, and the fact that little Jimmy just had elbow surgery? Like, how do you keep track of all of that to make sure that your customer relation program is top tier?
Yeah, so I am actually not on the phone with leads anymore. It's been maybe 6 months since I've fielded leads, seller leads or buyer leads. But we use a CRM. One is called Follow Up Boss. And so, for example, when the buyer lead comes in, so land.com will send me an email or send my sales manager an email saying, hey, you got a new lead. That email is forwarded to Follow Up Boss. It automatically creates a buyer lead profile for them. And then when she's on the call with them, she can make notes. Hey, little Jimmy just had elbow surgery. He's 5 years old, right? And then whenever she makes her call, she can make her calls from that platform. And then for our transaction tracking, we use Trello.
Got it. Right on. Very cool. Yeah, I think that's so important to have some type of system where you can keep track of all of those details that are not just details about the deal, right? But about the actual people that you're working with. So, a little bit about nuts and bolts of your business. When you start looking for a new area, you recently mentioned that you just got into a new market. How do you go about determining which is going to be your target market?
Yeah, so there's different metrics you can use. I just know with my first business that I want to be in the most crowded space possible, because I've tried those, I call them loser counties. I've tried the counties that like nobody else is in, and I just don't like my money sitting there for 12 to 18 months. Um, so I just go wherever it's really hot, and I know I can outperform my competition because we just answer the phone faster, and we're just real people.
Nice. And speaking of your team, can you talk us a little bit through like who's on your team and what do they do, and who was your first hire, and that kind of thing when you started building that out?
Yeah, so first hire, I guess I can use their names. First hire was Ditina. She actually came in, she was a buyer lead, and she actually bought land from me.
Oh,
And after all kinds of phone calls, I said, hey, you love land, you learn fast, you're smart. Do you want to come help me with my business? And because at the time I was doing everything. And she said, sure. And she loves it. She's excited. And she lives off grid on a parcel of land I sold her. And she's literally living the life that we're selling to people. And
Wow.
so we're not like, well, I'm in cushy suburbs in Los Angeles right now, but she's like off grid, buying propane, figuring out the solar thing. She has to haul water. She's doing all that. And that's what our leads, they love to hear that because it's the real deal.
That's incredible. And so what does she do in your business right now?
So I just promoted her yesterday to pretty much run the whole company. But before that, she was sales manager. So she would take the football from the 50-yard line to the end zone. Um, and at this time, I'm really only putting notes into GeekPay because I want that personal touch because the branding is still very Drew centric. So
Right.
I make them a Loom and I say, hey, congrats on your purchase. And I spend a few minutes just telling them anything they should know. But yeah, she takes the ball from the 50 to the 100, and then my intake manager takes it from the 0 to the 50. And so I have one full-timer that buys and another full-timer that sells.
Excellent. Excellent. And what is your acquisition process like? Like, how do you analyze deals? Who does that on your team? Who runs comps? That type of thing.
We just so I view, and I know this is not useful to most people because I'm kind of in a niche business right now, but I view my business as a vending machine. Like imagine a vending machine and a laundromat and it's got like cobwebs on it and stuff. And there's the snack that sells out real quick. And then there's that weird snack that takes a while to sell. Well, the snack that sells out quicker, I want to stack more deep, right?
Right.
Versus the one that's like weird, I only want one or two of them. So I have specific categories, like 5-acre Castilla, for example, right? That's one category. Maybe 5-acre Castilla in a certain area, 5-acre Castilla in another area. And then I want to be stacked multiple deep in each property type. And when we get low, we just refill. We just do more mail campaigns, or we buy wholesale, or we go to auctions. There's lots of ways to pick them up.
That's great. So you basically look at what is moving the fastest and you allow that to sort of guide your acquisition process to say, okay, we need to make sure that we stack that many, right?
Yeah. But I'm even fine with stuff that sells slow. I just need better margins. So if I know if it's inaccessible in the mountains, I need to be buying at 10% of market value, right? Because it's going to take me 18 months to sell it because I need some weirdo who wants to backpack into his property, right? So my margins are much tighter on the ones that are accessible, everyone wants, they sell faster. So as long as the numbers work, I'll do any deal.
Got it. And so when you are figuring out, like, let's say you're in a brand new market, you're not really sure which types of properties move at a certain speed. Is it just by virtue of just being in that market and collecting data to figure out what you can expect, which types of properties are going to move in a certain time frame, or is there other type of analysis that you do as well to sort of help inform that?
Yeah, so I don't do this, but you can so you can call local realtors, and if you find a good one, try to use them so they can get paid. But what I do tell my team is I actually have them call the competition, pretending like they're a lead, and then we farm them for information. So if like what I used to do is if I didn't want to figure out like the zoning and like water rights and all that, I just called the property nearest to the one I was buying, and I would just ask them all those same questions.
That's great.
So
Great.
so that's one way, is to call realtors or call your competition. Also, you can find days on market on Redfin. And then also you can go to Zillow and you can toggle between sold and for sale, like let's say within a 90-day window, and you can see what the supply and demand is, right? So if there's 100 properties for sale and 100 have sold, both within the past 90 days, that means it's a balanced system, right? Versus if 100 have gone on market, only 10 have sold, that means it's a very slow market, right? So that's one way to get a general vibe of the area. In terms of a specific property type, I actually don't know.
Got it. Got it. And so do you have a specific criteria of, what price you need to acquire the property at, or how do you go about crafting those offers?
Yeah, so I tell my team just to keep the lights on, we need to buy at 50% or below. So 50% is the absolute ceiling. That's the sweet spot is 25 to 40%. Anything over 40%, they're supposed to come to me. But yeah, if it's a very typical deal that we do a lot, they don't come to me, they just do it without me. So currently in my business, I'm signing purchase agreements both on the buy and the sell side. I'm putting in people into Geek Pay, and I'm making sure cash is there. But really, I've trained an employee to pay people. She sends checks for me, and when she goes into Mercury and tries to send a check, it sends me a little notification on my app, and it says, "Hey, Beth, she's trying to send this check. Is that okay?" And usually, I know what's going on. And so I approve it, check goes out. And so I have found in this business, like let's say I'm working 10 hours a week in this business, probably 6 hours of that is just nurturing relationships. So it is surprising to me how much leadership and soft skills matter at the stage I'm at least right now. The first stage was like, hey, learn how to do deals and learn how to like build systems so you don't go nuts. But now I'm at the level I'm like, wow, I actually need to be a leader where somebody wants to work for me for 10 years. And
Right.
so that's what I spend most of my week doing now is networking, nurturing relationships, and then learning new material.
Nice. Very good. And so you did mention that you did mail on the acquisition side for marketing, but do you do any other type of marketing like texting or anything like that?
I have done texting. We do texting for ibuyland.org. We're full steam ahead. We have the highest plan, and it's been nuts. We have too many deals. But for my first business, we just do mail, and I pay for the robot ink.
Got it.
So it looks like a human wrote it, and it's double the cost, but I'm pretty sure my open rate is more than double. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Excellent. And so, um, can you talk a little bit about when you were talking with sellers? Um, what are the top three things that you could share about three techniques, like top techniques when talking with sellers?
Um, I mean, it depends on the seller.
Mhm.
So, like you can gauge pretty quick how sophisticated they are. So if I think they can handle it, I actually explain my business model and they understand it. And they're like, oh, I get it. You're like a car dealership. If I want quick cash, I come to you. Right. So I have this 10-year-old Lexus that we drive. It's probably worth, let's say it's worth 10 grand. Okay. If I want to sell it today, I can go to a dealer and they're going to offer me $4,000 for it. Right. Or I can get it washed, I can vacuum it, I can post pictures on Marketplace, I can deal with buyer leads at weird hours, I can have people test drive my car, and I could try to get 9 or 10 for it, right? So if I think they can handle it, I explain the business model so they understand like what I'm doing. But if they don't sound like they can handle the thought of me reselling their property, um, I just make them an offer and just be a nice person. And if they say F you, then that's their problem. I
Got it.
don't, I tell my team, we don't create grumpy people, we just find them.
That's good. That's really good. And so, whenever you are um, doing acquisitions, what does your due diligence period look like? you mentioned that sometimes, like in the very beginning, you didn't even have a contract. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so full disclosure, any lawyers here, I use contracts now. Um, so I am completely legal. It was just those first handful of deals. So yeah, we use a company called Parcel Review, and I like them because I don't know if he's the owner or the manager, but his name is Eric. And anytime I have an issue, he immediately gets on it. And so I pay $40 for a title report. I pay $30 for due diligence, and they just do some basic vetting, nothing crazy. Keep in mind, I do self-closings, which most institutions no longer teach because it's seen as higher risk. And so if you are doing title company like Blue Ocean stuff, then your due diligence process will be more manual. You'll have a checklist you go through, um, and it'll just look slightly different. The good thing about title companies is they pretty much do all that, the title work, clean title search. You don't really have to worry about that. You just have to make sure the property fits your needs, like the physically, like is there access, floodplain, septic, water, all that.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about why you choose to do self-closings versus title company?
Um, so self-closing are cheaper, they're faster. And for the cheaper stuff, I think title companies, their fees just they don't make sense. And then, so that's like the official fluffy answer. The real answer is because self-closing is what I learned first and it keeps working. So I just keep doing it.
Got it. That makes total sense. And so um, we've talked some on the acquisition side. Can you share a little bit about what your dispo process looks like? How do you market your properties? How do you sell them, find buyers, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I use an internal sales manager, and then we only list on land.com. So I have all my eggs in one basket, kind of on purpose. Most people would say, oh, you're supposed to list on 5, 6 different platforms. I don't do that because I don't want my sales manager listing on 6 different platforms. That's not a good use of our time. And so I just do the most expensive and the best one. And I pay a sizable amount. I think I'm at $3,000 a month right now for 23 slots. 23 slots, 4 platinum showcase ads, and then I'm also paying for the land specialist slot for Western Arizona. So if you go to Western Arizona, land.com, you'll see a big old picture of Drew right there with his cheesy smile and American flag behind him.
Nice, nice. So talk to us a little bit now about your big headline that we were promoting this week, which was how you run your business in 8 to 10 hours a week with no automation.
Okay, so when I said no automation, the point I was trying to make is I'm not doing anything fancy. There's no zaps. There's none of my software talks to each other. Um, and you can do it too. That's my point with that comment. Is automation good? Yes, it is very good. And if I wanted to scale, I think the next level of scaling includes significant automation. I just wanted to make the point that don't get bogged down in that stuff too early. Just focus on doing deals. There's guys who they get to a pretty high level in this business with just a notepad and a piece of paper, and they have no software fees. They just do it all manual. I'm not that manual. I use software for everything, but yeah, there's no AI. There's no zaps connecting different things. It's just I've scaled with labor, and that's it really.
Got it. And what types of software do you use? You mentioned your CRM, but can you talk to us through some of the software that you have that you use in your business?
Yeah. Do you want to go through comments now, or you want to wait till the end? Because I do see maybe 5 or 6 in here.
Yeah, we can go through comments right before we get to the questions at the end.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for software, I use MapRight. I pay for the highest plan because it gets you the whole country. I use Trello. I use Follow Up Boss. What else do I use? Um, this is so bad because I'm not as involved anymore. I'm trying to think. Oh, Loom, you guys, you have to get on camera, pay for a Loom account, get on camera. It helps you close deals significantly better. They want to see that you're a real person. Doesn't matter if you're not wearing makeup or you don't look good that day. Get on camera, make looms, show them that their parcel is on the side of a mountain. And that's Loom is my favorite right now. I love it.
So how do you, can you be, that's a fantastic idea. I use Loom in my business for training team members, and I really like doing those sort of like tutorial videos, but can you walk us through how you use Loom really specifically for in dealing with buyers or dealing with sellers?
Yeah, so okay, so for sellers, I'll show them the positives and the negatives of their property, right? Well, I don't do that anymore, but my intake manager does that. And so then they can see, because what if they bought it in the 60s and they just bought it from a plat map or a flyer and they don't know that there's a huge wash going through it, right? So we show them that. So that's helpful with sellers. With buyers, it helps them with directions, how to get out there, how to see it, where the nearest gas stations are, nearest grocery stores. So for anyone who doesn't know, Loom is just a software. They have a free version and then there's a paid version that allows you to go for more than 5 minutes. But it records your screen. It puts a little bubble in the bottom part of your screen showing your face. And then you just give them a tour of whatever you want them to see, sharing your screen. Right when you press finish, it copies a link to your clipboard. You can paste that into an email or a text message and send it off to whoever needs to see it. So sellers, buyers, I make looms for my employees. I make them for networking, people that I want to network with, because an email, black and white email with no emojis versus Drew's face and they hear my tone. It takes the same amount of time or even faster to make a loom, but it builds those relationships much faster.
That is super, super smart. We hear a lot of, especially in the content creation world, that video is king. And so this is a fantastic way to use that. I love that idea. It looks like Jeff has a question. Can you share some of those buyer and seller videos? Do you have any old ones that people could check out somewhere, or you could share them with us now or anything like that?
I'll need to look for them. I now have hundreds of looms in there. And I don't title them, like they're not organized. I just send them out once. So I would need to, like go through them and figure out which one is which.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff, you can like message me later on Facebook. And I'd love to, do a call and just kind of elaborate on how to be effective with that.
Awesome. So back to the 8 to 10 hours a week, you mentioned that that about 6 of those hours are developing soft skills. What do those other 4 hours look like?
I'm trying to figure that out. I'm like, what do I spend my time doing? Because I know for a fact I don't spend very much time actually on the business, but I'm working 40, 50 hours a week. So what am I doing? So yeah, so let's see, those 4 hours. So there's email, there's my weekly team sync, which we spend 2 hours. So right now it's every Tuesday, 9 a.m. We spend 2 hours. We go through every single deal. Well, not every single deal. We go through most of the deals, and then we just make sure all three of us are synced on price, because one has to buy, one has to sell, and then I have to fund it, right? So
Right.
all three of us need to be on the same page with that. Um, I put people in the geek pay. I talk with my bookkeeper. Um, I watch Alex Hormozy, YouTube shorts. Um, and then the rest of the time is really just networking. I mean, I was on a call, you know, the phrase your network is your net worth is like, that's for me, that's everything, because I'm actually not very smart, but I want to be friends with the smart people so that if when there's new strategies, they're going to tell me about it.
Right.
So a massive amount of my work week is spent networking and learning. But in my first business specifically, yeah, it is probably 8 to 10 hours a week.
Nice. So what are some pro tips that you have for us about networking? How do you go about building relationships, nurturing relationships? Like what are your main key takeaways for networking?
Um, so always give, and I learned this from my wife and then also Ajay Sharma. Always give more than what you get. Okay. Because so out of every 10, so uh Kendall, you and I have never gone out to dinner together, but if we go out to dinner, I'm going to buy you dinner. And it's because for every 10 people I pay for, five won't pay back, or I'll just never see him again. Three might pay me back equal amount, but those last two, they're going to pay me back 100x more with connections. So here's a great example. Ajay and I, we were at a few conferences together just randomly. I bought him a few drinks, bought him dinner a few times. And then he connected me with Jaron Barnes, which has been the most profitable relationship I've had to date. And that was because Ajay liked me. And when Jaron said, "Hey, I need a funder," the first person he thought of was Drew. Um, so yeah, always give more than what you take. And I would encourage you, make your friends land people. If you have friends that they're playing video games every night and they're drinking beer, or if your friends are not supporting your goals, don't spend time with them. Um, and so yeah, those are my tips.
That's really good. I think that that's something that a lot of people, including myself, didn't really get until you really get into building the business and realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm really on an island here by myself doing this unless I'm connected with other land people. So that's a really great point. Um, we just talked about the importance of a network. What would you advise to people in terms of what type of people should they be looking for to network and to partner with?
So the people that are at your level currently are, believe it or not, the best people to network with, because you're going to grow together. So look for the ones that are at your level right now, but look for the ones that have a ton of potential, that currently they're at your level, but in 2 years they're going to be 10 levels ahead. And so grow with those people. You can reach out to people that are way ahead of you, but the chances that they want to spend like their precious time like doing a charity case for you is just a lot lower. So grow with the ones who are at your level at the moment.
That's really, really good. Um, what would you consider is your superpower?
uh I think I'm the kid that just keeps showing up. Like, I'm not good at anything. I struck out in T-ball when I was 5, which is not even possible. Um, but just keep showing up. If you show up every single day, you're the first one to get there, you're the last one to leave. I'm using a metaphor, like a sports metaphor. Uh, just keep showing up and you're gonna outlast everyone. Like Ryan Holiday says, you're not trying to outperform anyone, you're just trying to outlast them. And that's all I've done.
That's really good. Wayne says, Drew's superpower, my humble opinion, is that he never overcomplicates things. Action solves everything. You an action taker, Drew?
Yeah, I don't know. Wayne and I go back. He was actually in my first my first Land Geek group. And probably, so Wayne was on the call. 2 years ago, I think I went to a parcel in rural Missouri. It was like 4 hours away from Kansas City where I was living at the time. It was Father's Day, Sunday morning. I drove out there to go see it. I parked my car, and when I come back to my car, it was surrounded by people with guns, like
Whoa.
citizens. And I'm like, okay, something's not right. And they say, hey, you're trespassing, you're a bad guy, we're gonna get you. Turns out I was trespassing. I actually went on a parcel that had been sold. Um, but you guys got to go get out and do that stuff. I don't mean physically visit your parcels, because you really don't need to do that. I just mean you need to take action and kind of risk getting cut up a little bit, metaphorically and I guess physically. Long story short, I didn't get shot. Everything was fine. And it was a good story afterwards. But I remember Wayne was laughing about that one, because I shared it on our next call together a few days after that.
Man, I could only imagine. What a welcome wagon. Nothing but a bunch of guns. It's crazy. So you mentioned Alex Hormozy a little bit earlier, but can you talk us through like who are some of the entrepreneurs, business owners that you like to follow and that you like to learn from?
Um, Alex Hormozy is my recent favorite. I'm a fan of Clint Turner. He is the only person who is younger than me that I actually look up to as a leader, and I think he's really high quality. So I appreciate what he's done for this community.
That's fantastic for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. Yeah, I'll need to get back with you on that one.
Yeah, that's great though. I mean, I'm sure Clint will be happy to hear that he's on the short list with Alex Hormozy. That's pretty high praise. That's
Yeah,
awesome. So, what is the biggest surprise that you've had so far on your journey in the land space?
biggest surprise.
Outside of the guns.
Um, I had an HOA call me one day, and they said, hey, one of your terms buyers came in. They like brought a bunch of gravel trucks in when it was raining. They tore up the roads, and we're going to hold you liable for all this damage, 2 miles worth of damage. And it like ruined my week. Cause I'm like, I don't have, like, how much is this going to cost? Like 200 grand. At the time, I didn't have that.
Right.
So this is something that I think is just part of being a business owner, is realizing that at any time somebody can sue you, even if it's not over something legitimate. And that this is just part of being with the big boys. You make the big money and you got the big responsibility, and it's a rough world, and people are trying to take it from you. And that was probably still the biggest wake-up call, is like realizing, hey, I could build this empire, and then somebody could try and take it. But I don't really care as much anymore, because I'm learning to have fun. And unless somebody hits me in the head with a baseball bat, they can't take what's up here. Okay, they can take all my money, and I can rebuild in 2 years or 1 year or whatever. So once you realize that, and you do the whole Tim Ferriss practice poverty type practices, you realize, like, hey, I'm unstoppable.
That is really interesting. So, there's a lot of power that comes, I think, with the realization that I've built this once, I can build it again, and I have that skill set to do that. So, for people who may be listening to this that are starting from zero, they have zero money, they have no money to be able to invest in this. What would you say to them in terms of how to get started? If you had to start from scratch tomorrow, what would that look like for you?
I would go on Zillow or Marketplace. I would offer 40% of list price on every single property, and you're going to get a lot of FUs. And if you make 1,000 calls, you're going to get a deal. That would be my advice if you have no money, and you just want to jump in the deep end.
Got it. So they find the property, they have someone that finally says, yes, you can buy my property 40%. They have no money. How do they fund that deal?
Go on Facebook groups, all the land ones, say, hey, I've got this deal. Who wants to fund it? I'm brand new, so I'm offering 50-50 or even 60-40 in your favor. Here's the parcel number. Direct message me if you want to fund it. I need to know within 48 hours or whatever. Yeah, that's what I would recommend. Great. Find a local title company. Say, hey, I'm an investor. I don't have a contract for the state. Can you send me like a default contract for me to give to this buyer, and then get a free like a free subscription to DocuSign, send it to them in DocuSign, get that over to title, and start calling realtors, telling them, hey, I've got this deal in the pipeline. Actually, I would call realtors first to have them help you comp it. And then yeah, that's how you can do your first deal with no money.
That is huge, those action steps right there, because I think so many people, you know, they are in that exact same position, that they don't have the resources to get started. They don't know where to do that or how to go about doing that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Brad says fundmyland.com has most of the lenders who fund land deals as well. So that's a resource as well, fundmyland.com, if you're looking for lenders. That's a fantastic resource as well. So Drew, I'm curious, what is your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
I want to have as much fun as possible, and be the best father I can be, because yeah, I just know after a certain point, what is it, like after 70 grand, extra money doesn't add any extra happiness. I think in LA it's probably double that.
The LA
but yeah, so the way I view it is, so I grew up in like nerdy middle class white Midwest Christian culture where we play a lot of board games.
Okay.
And so I view it as, hey, I want to play Monopoly. I'm going to play to win, but if I lose, I still had fun, right? And so that's the way I view business, is I'm just playing to have fun. I love building things. People might say, oh, you work so much. Well, an 8-year-old boy will spend all weekend building his Lego castle or his Lego Death Star. I'm just that 8-year-old boy who's, you know, building my Lego castle, and I'm having a lot of fun.
I think that's incredibly powerful, and what an awesome mindset it is to have, that you are just having fun along the way. It's not a do or die. Every single thing is, you know, make or break, but the simple mind frame of, I am going to have fun along the way and enjoy the journey. I think it puts you in a completely different mind space, even when you're, you know, for whatever you're doing, whether you're building your company, you're training your employees, when you're on the phone with sellers, if you know that I'm just having fun with this, I don't have to close this in order to live tomorrow, that's a completely different, you show up differently, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I still do self closings. It blows my mind that I get to convince people to send money to my house. Okay, do we have time? What time is it? We got plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
All right, you guys, I had a buyer in the middle of the night. He put a down payment on one of my biggest properties. It was like 40 something grand. And then he says, hey, I live in rural Missouri. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's 2 hours from me. And he's like, hey, I want to pay with cash, like real dollar bills. And so I said, okay. And he comes to my house and he pays me in actual cash. He didn't want any escrow. There was no purchase. Well, there was a purchase agreement. But to me, it just blows my mind. I'm convincing people to pay me money and they're just trusting that I'm going to deed them the property. So anyways, nobody got shot. We both had guns on ourselves with all this cash on the table. Nobody got shot. I actually really appreciate him. I still talk to him sometimes. He had face tattoos all over, and he was a tattoo artist who was on TV on one of those reality ink shows.
Wow.
And so he had just so much cash that he needed to get rid of because he's in a cash business. So I actually had a neighbor text me. He's like, "Hey, I saw this shady guy go in your house. Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine. He just paid me 40 grand cash. No big deal." So yeah, that was one of the crazier stories. But yeah, I'm just having fun.
That's awesome. Wow. I would imagine that your branding and your positioning for your brand has a lot to do with how people trust you and that type of thing. How did you go about developing that brand story for yourself?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I have a couple business degrees, and they always preach about branding and marketing and how important it is to connect with your target audience. But it's also just being who you are, right? So I'm a white Midwest Christian guy in the military, so I'm going to tell people that. And I even say on my ads, I support the Second Amendment and I support equality for all people, including unborn children. I say that in every single ad. And so if you want to buy from me, you're probably going to have the same values. If you don't want to buy from me, you're not going to buy from me, and I'm okay with that. And so I think it's being true to who you are and telling the world why you are different, and just representing yourself accurately.
Yeah, that authenticity I think is so important. And I think that just goes back to what you were talking about earlier is that, you're just having fun. This is, you're not doing anything shady that you have to get this deal or, you're under a specific kind of pressure to make a deal happen. And I think you show up differently when you have that mindset, right? So, what makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
Oh, I just started proactively trying to go on walks without my cell phone, which actually backfired recently because I missed a meeting. But yeah, I'm trying to build in space where my brain has time to think about creative solutions. And so I've been taking my daughters on walks. It's maybe like 20-30 minute loop that we do. And that's been my recent habit that kind of helps me stay focused, I guess.
Nice. Really cool to connect that way with yourself, right? Like I think, and then that just goes back into, when you unplug, it's a lot easier to figure out like to stay in touch with who you are and how you show up in your business and just in the world in general, which is very, very cool. If you could go back to teach your younger self or teach your kids when they're teenagers, what would you go back and teach?
You know, this is not like a plug on purpose, but when I left the military in my late 20s, I left active duty. So I'm in the reserves now for clarity. When I left active duty late 20s, I really felt like I wasted my time because all my peers had technical skills that I didn't have. All I had was leadership skills. And then now I'm in my mid 30s and I'm realizing, wow, actually, going through hard things was the best use of my time ever. And I learned all my leadership lessons on the government's dime. So I would actually encourage, teenagers and in your 20s, do hard things like even marathons. Just train for something that you think is really hard and prove to yourself that you can do it, because those mindsets translate to business. Even if somebody sues me or I go out of business or the land industry becomes so saturated I can't make any money, I know for a fact that I can start another company and scale it and do well. The kid down the street, so we just left Kansas City, we just moved. The kid down the street was a 19-year-old who started mowing lawns. He now makes 100K a year mowing lawns, and he's only doing it himself. He hasn't even scaled. And I've always said, you know what? I kind of want to start a lawn mowing company. Because what kind of man doesn't want to like just chop up grass all day? You
Right.
know? So yeah, those are some recent thoughts I've had.
Very cool. Very cool. Before we get to questions, Drew, I just want to thank you so much for giving to us today. How can we give back to you right now? Like, what resources or connections are you looking for right now that we can help with?
Um, we have a few open seats for our mastermind in Korea. We have yeah, there's a vetting process just to make sure that you're a good fit. I'm trying to think anything else. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to be associated with big guys like Clint Turner and Ajay and Jack Bosch, because I'm just that kid that really, I haven't done anything special, guys. I just keep showing up, and when you have fun, you tend to just you work more because you're actually having fun. So really, I just spend all day doing my hobby. So yeah, that's all I've got.
That's really, really cool. I think that's so important is that, I read it somewhere that if you love what you do, regardless of what it is, you will always beat and outwork someone else who's doing it that doesn't love it because you're thinking about it when you don't have to think about it. You're thinking about it just to have fun first thing when you wake up, last thing before you go to bed, where that other person is approaching it like work, right? You will always outwork the other person if you're doing it for fun. So that's a really powerful insight. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Drew, especially thank you for being so generous with your time. I really loved getting a peek inside your brain and inside your business and see, kind of how you run things. And I know that I picked up a ton of value, and I know that everyone else has as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for everyone that is on the call live tonight. As always, we do these every Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Time. If you are listening and you have not joined yet, please make sure you go to onlylandfans.com. We can continue the conversation there. Drew is a member of that group as well. And you can ask any type of questions to our mastermind. We talked earlier about how important it is to be in a community of other land flippers and other people who are trying to do the same things that you are doing. And so that's a great community there. And I am very passionate about that project and making sure that we have a space to learn, grow, collaborate, do deals, and partner with each other. So I want to thank everyone again so much for being on the call tonight. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. And I hope everyone has a great week. We will see you next week. Until then, be great, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
If you're interested in hearing from other 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, then check out my group, OnlyLandFans, where I do a live interview each week inside the group. You can grab that link at the description below. Until then, be great, have a great week, and catch you in the next one.